do so. We will be resuming the raffle in search of the Queen of Hearts. So please bring in your money next week. We're going to get that back up and going. Remember that proceeds from the raffle are also going to go to our efforts at youth services. So certainly the money will be well spent. We began this year with a program that I got up here and did to talk a little bit about our financial situation as a club and put on the horizon the potential of a dues increase. I am happy to report to everybody at this point in time that a lot of the measures that we enacted through the budget and the work that President-elect Tim Johnson has done, and of course Raul as well, it's having a positive impact. There is still the potential that we will consider one later on in the year. I do want to put that on everybody's radar, and certainly we will have a much longer conversation about it if we get to the point where we think that is going to be necessary. If you have questions or concerns or anything like that, feel free to reach out to me now and we can have an ongoing conversation as we move through the year. I believe I spoke with Mike beforehand. I don't think there's going to be a need for Family of Rotary. Certainly happy birthday. Oh.
Well, I got one impromptu family Rotary. Will Jackson and mother wife have had a brand new baby girl, and they just had the baby. And so now she's 1 month old. Couple months old.
They grow up fast. It's not like that. Congratulations, Will. That's awesome.
President Dane, can I add one thing?
Of course.
I visited with Phil Boss last week for a couple hours at his house. Physically, doing great, lost a few pounds, but doing great. He would love for folks, or his family would love for folks, if you want to visit with him, pick him up, take him somewhere. Phil's got a really good long-term memory, a good long-term memory, short term. But I stood up with him for 3 hours in his house and reviewed all of his history. And it's amazing the things that Phil Boss has done. A lot of us know a lot of it. But it was an enjoyable 3 hours, extremely pleasant. He was excited to have, talk about the club, ask about the club. So Phil Boss is doing well. But give him a call if it is.
Thank you for that update, John. Certainly, best wishes to Phil and his family, and hopefully we're going to be able to see him here at a meeting very soon. At this time, I'd like to call up Mary Pat Wollmeyer, who's going to introduce today's speaker.
Thank you, Dane. The cold weather today has me dreaming of Margaritaville. I hope it has you dreaming of Margaritaville. And if you haven't purchased your tickets yet for our April 24th show, they are available, and Patty can help you with that. Our guest today, Dan Bean. He's a retired Navy veteran, where he received the Legion of Merit along with many other awards during his 25-year career. He's the co-founder of ABL Law and is the interim CEO and board chair for Canines for Warriors, which you all know is where I work. Dan is the president of the USS Orlick, the Jacksonville Historic Naval Association. He's chair of the Jacksonville Port Authority Board of Directors, chair of the Northeast Florida Mission United Advisory Board, and chair of Fresh Ministries. Wow, Dan. Thank you for all your service. He's also the treasurer of 5-Star Veteran Center and a board member for the Fire Watch and vice chair of the Florida College Prepaid Foundation. His wife, Ann, is former president of the St. John's Rotary. Please welcome Dan Bean.
Thank you, Mary Pat. I appreciate that. Thank you all for being here. First, I want to start by thanking each of you for what you do for our community. Really grateful for all the community service that the Rotarians provide, and all of you in your individual capacities as well. Very familiar with Rotary, given my wife's presidency. I was Mr. First Lady, and never missed the opportunity to pick up trash on County Road 210. But no, I do appreciate all that you guys do, and all the guys and gals do, and thank you. We obviously need it. Before I begin my prepared remarks, I did spend the last 3 days in Iowa. It was a tremendous trip. It's the first time I've been to the Iowa caucus. Obviously, I know that each of you might be cold today, but it wasn't anything like I experienced in minus 15. It was fascinating to be there, to watch the process and to participate. I have known Ron and Casey DeSantis since 2009 when Ron was on active duty, Governor DeSantis, and I don't mean to be disrespectful. The governor worked with us, Mike Prendergast, at Holland and Knight for a couple of years. I was also fortunate that he was in my unit. I was his commanding officer. And so I've kept up with them, two wonderful people and their family, and really appreciated the opportunity to be in Iowa to support him. If you've not participated in Iowa caucus, it is a little bit of the wild, wild west and a little bit disorganized, but really, truly, you have Americans there in that process. And it was quite interesting to see how it works. And so I made it back. I was supposed to fly out Friday, got canceled. Saturday got stuck in Denver. Sunday got to Omaha and then drove the 2 hours, survived I-80. And there must have been 100 trucks that had been jackknifed. Just must have been a terrible ice storm that we were fortunately missed because the airlines delayed us. So that was good. Today, I'm here to talk to you a little bit about Canines for Warriors and the USS Orlike. Mary Pat asked me to step in for Carl. Carl is our former CEO. He had the tenure for a year, and Carl and his team were responsible for setting 2 records for Canines for Warriors, which I'll get to. But I just wanted you to understand why I'm here. I've been the board chair for a couple of years, and I always think it's incumbent upon a board chair when the CEO has to leave that the board chair step in until the replacement is found. I asked Mary Pat if I could talk a little bit about the USS Orlike, and she told me I could. And so for those of you who have remembered the process, we started about 13 years ago in 2009, 2010. It was the project, the mission was to help downtown Jacksonville. And to help downtown Jacksonville, you have to have attractions. And so the warship was something that we thought would work as an attraction. And so we went to work and did that. About 7, 8 years ago, we realized that the Jaguars and Mr. Khan and Mr. Lamping would have a great say as to what goes on the North Bank there next to the stadium. And that just made sense. So we went to them and said, here's what we're trying to do. And we believe that you all will be the ultimate deciders next to the mayor and the city officials. And they said, what makes you think that? And we said, well, because you have the most money. And so that turned out to be true. So we laid out the plan to them and asked them to, because, we just basically said, look, we want the North Bank developed. We think this is a good idea for one part of the North Bank, but if you all don't think it's a good idea, we don't want to catch ourselves 5 years from now and have a big gray hull of steel and find out that you don't like it. And so if you'd studied our project now and let us know, and they did that. And so 4 weeks later, they called us back into the office, which I thought was a good sign because I thought they would just kill us on the telephone, but they didn't. They had us into Shad's office and they made us sign non-disclosure agreements, and they unveiled their plan for the North Bank, which has now changed a couple of times. But the most important thing was that the ship was there. And so I asked them, well, this is great. We're so honored that you think enough of our project. Would you like to pay for it? And they said no. So that puts back, we just kept raising money, and ultimately we were able to do that. If you recall, what you see in this video here shortly is we initially went to have the United States Navy donate the USS Charles F. Adams. The Charles F. Adams was the lead ship in the Cuban Missile Crisis. It would be the youngest Navy warship on display in our country, and that's really what was our main attraction. It also had been stationed in Mayport. And I had served on it as a midshipman in 1984, which was my introduction to Jacksonville, Florida. In about 2018, having worked with Congressman Rutherford, you'll see him in the video here as Sheriff Rutherford. Congressman Rutherford called me and told me, look, this secretary and CNO, they don't want to donate any more warships. A lot of the ships are having some issues. around the country, and senators and congressmen like myself are pressuring the Navy to help with the warship museums, and they just don't want to have pressure come from Jacksonville in 10 years when you fail. And I was like, okay, I can understand that. And so what we did was we went on social media, as you'll see in the video, and just said, we're not going to pursue the Charles F. Adams anymore. We're in the market. There's nothing available on eBay right now. But if anyone knows of any warships that are available, please call us. And within an hour, that's what happened. The folks in Lake Charles with the USS Orlick called us and said, you know, our pier, we're about to be foreclosed on. You all have a pier. You don't have a ship. We have a ship, but we don't have a pier. Maybe we have a makings of a relationship. And that's what happened. If you remember Smokey and the Bandit, a long way to go and a short way to get there. We got in a car and drove 25 hours to Lake Charles and back because we wanted to see the USS Orlick for ourselves. And it was in pretty bad shape. But we felt that it could make the transition with some money, millions of dollars, by the way, and a lot of love and care. And that's ultimately what happened. So if you would play that first video, it'll talk to you a little bit about the 12, 13-year struggle to get it here, and then I'll pick it up after that.
A second.
They have not written down, they do schedule date, when you end up that is back.
This isn't just about ship. It's about the opportunity to show like.
So that's a 2-minute version of 12 years of work and effort. So she's been here since March of 2022. In December of 2021, we took her off the pier in Lake Charles and brought her over to Gulf Copper in Orange, Texas, which is where she was commissioned in 1945. We put about $2.5 million worth of work into her in steel, and then moved her in March of 2022 to Jacksonville. Obviously, she was towed. The price differential from the year before to March of 2022, we went from about a $200,000 tow to $400,000 tow in fuel and things of that nature. and our expenses rose, obviously, as you might imagine, but we got here in March of 2022, as I mentioned, and so we stayed in front of Hyatt. The Hyatt wasn't exactly too happy with us blocking some of their wedding venues there in front of their annex. I did have one sister of a bride call me and ask me if we could move the ship for a couple of hours. I told her, sure, we could do that. It would probably only take about $100,000 to do that. And she said, you know, I'm serious. I really need it moved. And I said, I'm serious. I really don't have the money to do that, but I'd be glad to do it. So obviously we didn't move, but ultimately I wasn't crazy about us being there. And we moved over to what we call now the Navy Pier, which is the pier closest to what was the Berkman 2 Plaza. And so since then, we have cleaned that area up. We will do some maintenance on the pier here in the coming months to even make it even more presentable. We've had 5 or 6 events on that pier, and our goal is to open up that pier for evening events, have food trucks and other things on that pier so that people can enjoy what we already enjoy, having the ability to access the ship. On New Year's Eve, we had a party for 1,000 people on that pier. Unfortunately, nobody fell in. And so we've had the Florida Georgia party for 500. And so we continue to do that. We've had a Korean commemoration, a Vietnam commemoration as well. And we'll continue to do that. Well, we felt that activating the waterfront was really important, and that's what we've been doing. If you recall, in front of us is the Fire Museum. The Fire Museum was built out of the ashes of the fire of 1901. The Fire Museum, prior to its movement from over by the WJCT building and that park area there, had been closed for the last 5 years before it was moved. It remains closed. While we were moved on the very same day in March of 2022 that the Fire Museum was moved, we actually beat it down the river because it got stuck going across Hogan's Creek. We've had 70,000 visitors in the time that we've been here. The Fire Museum has had 0. The city spent about $3 million to move the Fire Museum. So now that the city has activated Catherine Street and brought it down to the river and made that area more accessible, we are going to help the city activate the Fire Museum as well. You may not know, but the Fire Museum is part of the African American History Trail as well. And so we'll continue to emphasize that going forward. But ultimately, our hope is that you'll be able to visit the Fire Museum fully activated and the warship. You buy 1 ticket, you get 2 spots. And then ultimately, if the MOSH moves over, and I understand they hit their funding goals, so eventually they'll come over and they'll be on a pier down from us. We'll have a very nice area for people to come and enjoy themselves during the day and also come and spend some time on the pier. We've had over 200 private events on the warship. We've done 5 weddings. We've done 3 yogas. We've done comedy night. We've had NFL film premieres. We're trying to do as much as we can to integrate ourselves into the community and make it as accessible to everybody in all walks of life. We've had over 10,000 students in that 70,000. We do all kinds of things with the Boys and Girls Clubs and the public school students and private school students, obviously trying to show them an opportunity to serve our country like many of us did as well. That's the future of the USS Orlick, and we're extremely proud of it. We couldn't have done it without ViStar. And ViStar was provided a critical line of credit for us and have been an incredible partner with us. We've also partnered with AARP and multiple other entities to help us be able to do this. Let me see if there's anything else. The Orlick itself basically commissioned in 1945 at the very end of World War II. It did not see any warfare in World War II, but it did see a lot of it in the Korean War, Korean conflict. And then it was a train buster in the Korean conflict. It would stay off the coast, see the light at night, lay down gunfire support in front of the train. Once the light stopped, it would hit behind the train, and then it would hit the train. And that's why it's called the train buster of the Korean conflict. Its main history, though, is Vietnam. It fired more rounds than any Navy warship. It is the most decorated warship in the Navy since Vietnam. She made 11 trips, I think, to Vietnam. And if you come to see the ship, we have spent a considerable amount of money to have the Mount 52 experience. You actually climb into the gun mount. And then you were simulated as though you're off the coast of Saigon or off the coast of Vietnam in October 31st of 1968, when the Orlik took fire and returned it in a big way. But that's her main history, and so it's really emotional to see some of the Orlik sailors come back to the ship, see where they slept, see where they worked, and for some it can be overwhelming. We recently had a 92-year-old veteran who served in Korea. In 1982, the United States gave her to Turkey. And in 2002, the Orlik family went over and negotiated the release of the Orlik from Turkey. On the same day the United States gave the Orlik to Turkey, they gave a similar destroyer to Greece. And as you know, Greece and Turkey do not get along. But the Orlik never had to fight her sister. She did serve in the Desert Storm in 1990s. And if you come to see us now, you'll see that we've left a lot of the Turkish influence there. One of which is that atop the front mast is a box encased, which is where the Turks would go to pray 4 to 5 times a day. We've left a lot of the Turkish influence, so you can see that. We have a Dash, the drone anti-submarine helicopter. There are 20 of those in the world remaining. Back in the 60s, they would fly these drones off with torpedoes, launch the torpedo, and then it would circulate into the water, running on oxygen and fuel, and search for the submarines. And so we have a drone in the helicopter hangar, which was just redone as well. And we've done afterbirthing, so we're just about ready to have sleepovers and things of that nature for the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and the Sea Cadets. I've also thought about, my family reunion sometimes comes down here for Christmas, and I was thinking instead of putting them up at my house, I might put them into the ship. It'd be a lot cheaper and a lot cleaner. So, but we've opened that up, and then eventually we'll open up engineering, and long-term plans would include an Airbnb type of room where the Commodore's cabin was. Again, just to continue to make things as new and as interesting as possible. But that would be the vision for the warship downtown, and then eventually install and replace the Orlik with another warship maybe in 10 years or so. Probably go to a foreign country to do so, just like the Orlik family did, because it's been a little difficult negotiating with the United States Navy. This ship is owned by the nonprofit, not by the Navy, and this makes it a lot easier for us to do some of the things that we've done. I'm going to now shift to Canines for Warriors. As I said, I'm the interim CEO. I've been affiliated with Canines for Warriors since Sherry Duval, who's the co-founder, told me I would be involved in 2011. She just a wonderful human being, a wonderful patriot. She started, and you might not know, but she started Canines for Warriors when her son Brett came back from Iraq. He was a civilian contractor working with bomb sniffing dogs. Brett came back with, like so many folks with post-traumatic stress disorder, and like so many other people with post-traumatic stress disorder, he started to self-medicate with alcohol. There weren't any type of services available for Brett, but Sherry saw that the dog seemed to help Brett calm down and also become more available to the public. A lot of times with post-traumatic stress disorder, I work with 9 veterans that I mentor, all with post-traumatic stress disorder, male and female. They all disassociate from public settings. They relegate themselves to their rooms. They'll come out maybe at 2 or 3 in the morning. They're not all the same, obviously. Some can do a little bit better than others, but that is the typical symptoms that you're seeing with folks with post-traumatic stress disorder. It obviously can be more debilitating to others, but we found with the dogs that helps bring them back into society. And so we will hit our 1,000th pairing of service dog and warrior in March of 2024. Sherry and Brett started it in 2011, so it's taken us approximately 13 years to get to 1,000. And in those 1,000, 90% come to us with suicidal ideation. Only 1 of the 1,000 has committed suicide. Canines has a tremendous after-action network. We keep in contact with our warriors. We help them service their animals, and then when they lose their animal due to age or retirement or something like that, we replace the dog. And those are not counted in the 1,000. So the 1,000 that we hit in March are all new. It's an amazing marriage between animal and human. We like to say that we're the largest largest provider in the United States of this. There's obviously a ton of them around the country. No one does it better than us. No one is bigger than us. We set 2 records in 2023. We raised more money than ever before, $25 million. And we paired more dogs than ever before with humans. About 40%, about 50% of the dogs that we get are rescue dogs. When we originally started, they were all rescue dogs. And what we found is as we grew, our wait time grew significantly. At one point, it was almost 5 years, which can be absolutely prohibitive for some of our veterans. There's no way that they can wait that long. We've got it down to about a year now. Typically, we find it is good for them to have to wait. It's good for them we get them in a run-up program where we're working with them and preparing them for what is about to happen in their life. You are about to have an animal attached to you for the rest of your life, okay? And you need time to prepare yourself and your family. A lot of the veterans already have an animal in their house, so they have to prepare that way. And so typically, we don't want to rush going too fast. Someone comes to us and says, I have documented PTSD, let's get you a dog. It doesn't work that way. We found that it's better to make them wait a little bit of time. And in that time period, when I talk to the warriors, we have a group of fellows and female and male veterans that have lunch with the class every month. And I've been doing that for about 10 years. Once they're accepted into the program and they understand there is some wait time, but they say that that is the time period where they are filled with hope. And that gives them optimism that they can get through and get to our program. They do not pay a dime for coming to see us for 3 weeks. We fly them from anywhere they are, or they can drive, whatever it is. And once they get here, we have already built a profile for them. And so we're studying the human, and then we're also studying the dog, okay? And so we try to pair the characteristics of the dog best with the human. Doesn't always work. About 40% of the dogs that we get make it into a program of being paired. And of the pairings, there's about a 90%, 95% success rate. So this class we have on board right now, I'll have lunch with them on Sunday. But we lost one in Texas. In fact, we lost him when he was in our Gainesville campus. So it's not unusual for some folks to just not be able to make it all the way through. We have about a 90% success rate. And then once they leave us, I think the success rate is almost 100% once they get away. Now we do an annual recertification with them. So unlike my relationship with my dogs, they've trained me quite well. We don't want the dogs to train the warrior. We want the warrior to make sure that they control the service dog. And so we make sure that the warrior have to go through a recertification program for us. But we spend a lot of time with the warriors after they leave us to make sure that everything's going right. For a lot of warriors, it's a very, the Veterans Administration or any type of veteran benefit is very difficult to navigate. And so we do a lot of help we help them with that, their veterinarian issues, their dog issues and things of that nature. So we have a mega kennel on Phillips Highway, which has helped us to decrease the amount of time that it takes for us to get the service dog to the veteran. We also have a facility in San Antonio now. Texas has had of the 1,000 pairings, Texas has had over 100 of them. But we've been in, I think, Mary Pat, 48 or 49 of the states now. We've also gone to Guam. And so I can see the program actually expanding worldwide as we grow. We're going to show you one video here of one life that changed. And again, you can just multiply that by 1,000 and you can get an idea of what a life-changing experience it is. So if you can play that, Joe.
Getting it for you.
It's picking up the sound of the oil.
Okay. Hold a minute, I've got it mixed.
No, that's a new sound to the canine video. That's not what I heard yesterday. But that's okay. It sounds good.
So What was the verdict? Am I mixing them?
Yeah.
No extra charge for that.
It's exciting though.
Okay, so we're gonna stop that one.
Yeah, see that 2 videos on.
Uh-huh.
We might all rather be there.
Okay, so we want the. What do we think?
Okay, just the video is probably.
And say, you know, let's look at this, let's look at that, you know, it's still pretty good way to say.
Thank you, Joe. So Carlos is very much an example of the other 999. It is an incredibly paralyzing syndrome, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemies. I had a friend of mine when I was in law school at University of San Diego. She came back having been activated. She was a totally different person, and I had no idea what was wrong with her. I was completely ignorant to what she had gone through and what she was experiencing. She had post-traumatic stress disorder, and her life changed 180 degrees. And so it's programs like this that can help people put their life back together and give them back some form of humanity. They obviously put their lives on the line for us, and they deserve our efforts to try to help them back to where they once were. So before I give up the microphone and answer any question, I do want to give a shout out to Mike O'Brien there. I work a lot with 5-Star Veteran Center, and it is a totally different place now. Mike is there. He's done a tremendous job with 5-Star. That's the homeless center for veterans. And then lastly, for Willie, I donate every quarter platelets and blood. It is a very simple process for you to do it. And you can read a book or do whatever you need to do. Well, I always bill clients while I'm there. And so they're sucking my blood, so I'm taking someone else's blood. But it's a wonderful program at One Blood, and it's very, very respectful of your time. And I highly recommend you do it. That's how I found out I'd had COVID. After 6 months, hey, dude, you got the platelets. So I'm like, I must have had it. But One Blood does a tremendous community service as well. So any questions on the Orlick or Canines for Warriors for anybody? All right, did everyone fall asleep? Yes, sir.
Yeah, we're gonna let him take a mic so the folks at home can hear.
Oh, very good.
I wanted to thank you for all that you did bringing a naval vessel here.
Thank you.
I got the opportunity to go on a tour of it. It's so much pride and so much, importance to our community. So thank you for all that you did for our community and bringing that naval vessel here. We need many more like it. I don't know if you're bringing the carrier. Now you need to bring the carrier.
Well, I think eventually
We got the next step for you.
we'll try to bring a larger platform in so that there can be more things done on it. I think San Diego, I was stationed in San Diego for 5 years, and seeing what they've done with the Midway, it took them 12 years to do it as well. But it has transformed that area where it's at. And so for, long term, do I think we can handle a bigger platform and be able to do bigger and better things? Absolutely. I'll only want to have one ship at a time, though. We don't want to have a shipyard of auto collected or, cars on the lot for people to buy. But I do think we can support that. And with the 70,000 people and counting, I'm optimistic that we can do a lot more.
Thank you, Dad.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for being here with us today, and thanks for all you've done on both fronts.
Thank you.
My question is on the Canine for Warriors. If you said this earlier and I missed it, I apologize, but on average, what does it cost you from start to finish to put a dog in the hands of one of our veterans?
Between $30,000 and $40,000. But that also includes the aftercare. So we, as we've grown, we haven't been able to use solely rescue dogs, right? The dog has to have a certain temperament, and over time now, based on our data that we've collected over the course of time, we're getting better and better pairings and more accurate with our results, right? And so what we've found is we will always take rescue dogs, but in order to shorten the time period, we've had to go out and purchase dogs. So that's driven up our costs, obviously. And then having dogs in Texas drives up your costs as well. And so that's why it's a stunning amount of money. Of course, remember, the Warrior doesn't pay a dime. So we bring the Warrior in at cost, house the Warrior for 3 weeks, do all the training, different facilities, take care of the dog, get the dog ready. And then after the Warrior leaves, we're still paying for the Warrior and for the dog as well. I mean, the Warrior's not on a salary after they leave, but when they have problems with the dog, we help the Warrior with that. We pay for the veterinarian bills. We arrange for those type of services to be done. And then if we have to bring the Warrior back. And so we do it all through donations. Not a penny to the dime. And then, go ahead, you had a question, ma'am.
Well, it's more about canine. So you mentioned, about bringing the Warriors back. You're at your 1,000th dog.
Mm-hmm.
Logistically, that's a lot of Warriors that you're bringing back annually for recertification. So is it annually or how do you, logistics behind all that? How do you do that?
Yeah, we recertify via Zoom. So I'm sorry to imply that we bring them back for training, but they do get recertified annually. And that's part of the process. So Canines owns the dog. And so one of my veterans that I mentored, she reoffended, she went back to jail. We took the dog back. If a Warrior were to mistreat the dog, we take the dog back. It's the canines owns the dog. We loan the dog to the warrior. And that's one of the reasons why we are so active in the aftercare program as well. I mean, fortunately, my program with my ward, one of my warriors that we went through the program when she reoffended, and now she's back in working in society. God bless her. But we have that ability, but she had to go through the recertification program as well. Now, when a warrior dog retires or a warrior dog passes away, and like we had last week, we had 2 warriors lose their dog. Tremendously traumatic event for the warrior. So we spend a great deal of time with the warrior, making sure that the warrior is okay now that they've lost their friend for life. And then we try to make sure we get them in the rotation for another dog as soon as they can handle it and as soon as we can provide it. But along the way, they are having to recertify.
And if I could ask just a
Sure.
follow-up question on the dogs, you mentioned Texas.
Mhm.
And how you get rescue dogs
Mhm.
from Texas.
Mhm.
You get dogs from breeders, obviously you're
Here.
getting dogs from Jacksonville.
Yep.
Are there other cities in the United States that you guys get rescues from or
Not yet.
other organizations?
I'm not aware of any other state that we do that, Mary Pat.
We go to procure the dog rescue will drive a 24-hour radius, bring them in. But we have partner organizations as far as New Jersey, Mississippi, South Carolina, where some of those are breeders and they'll bring in some of the dogs that way.
But as we expand, those will be areas in which we would look to expand in areas that have that type of inventory.
First, thank you for your military service.
Oh, thank you. Oh,
And
thank you.
also, thank you for the K-9 program, because I have a lot of brothers and sisters that I dealt with when I was in Iraq that go through with PTSD, and that's a great program to help them out with. Now, my question is, once if a dog dies, how soon do they get a replacement, if that's possible?
Sure. As soon as we have a class opening, a lot of times we'll have folks that are booked for a class. As they get close, life happens, they can't go, and then we can pull that warrior much quicker. We also, because we get so much money from the state of Florida, we have a preference for the state of Florida folks. And then one of the things we're looking at doing in the future is, like for Texas, for example, they gave us funds for building there and things of that nature. But there are other states that have really enjoyed our donations, and so they're warriors. So we're going to go to those states and say, hey, we've done 50 New Jersey residents. We'd like you to consider funding some of that as well in the future. But that's the process. And then for the dogs that don't make it through all the way, we have station dogs for them. And so I think, Mary Pat, we've placed almost 60, is that correct, some number? And so we have placed those all around the country. They are incredible branding for us. They go into police stations and fire stations, the FBI, NCIS. We placed our first dog, which I'm very proud of, with the Women's Center here in Jacksonville. And so those are dogs that aren't quite good enough to be with a warrior full time, but they are good enough to be walking around in an area to relieve the stress of the jobs that these folks have, or the Women's Center, or for example, Rethreaded here in Jacksonville, a tremendous stress reliever to have those dogs here and to have them participate. What needs to happen though is there has to be someone who's willing to take the dog home at night, or we can't place them there. But that has been tremendously successful. We also have dogs with the Washington Commanders, the Denver Broncos, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Miami Dolphins, and obviously the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, you mentioned that dogs retire,
Mhm.
which I hope to do someday.
Yeah.
Is there a certain age that they have to retire, and then what do you do with the dogs? Do they become station dogs? Do you adopt them out, or what?
Each dog is different, obviously, but the station dogs are typically I think, Mary Pat, we're looking at a 2-year-old dog, frankly. The dog has to be strong enough for the veteran, the warrior, to be able to brace upon and step up. So not all dogs are good for that. We find the Labrador Retriever is particularly good for it, but we have had poodles and different things like that. They have to be big enough though for that. And I don't think we have a mandatory age retirement for the dog itself. It's basically a decision that the warrior makes with the family. I have a retired dog that is 7 years old, and she is a big puppy. She runs around and just out of control. Her problem was that her warrior got a job as a bomb sniffing private contractor and had his own dog. And Stevie likes to be number one, so, you know, in the middle of it and doesn't really like, not in an aggressive way, but she will let you know that she's number one. And so she wasn't doing well with the bomb sniffing dog. And so the bomb sniffing dog won out and I got Stevie. Any other questions? I want to be real respectful of everyone's time. Dane, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Very briefly.
Thank you. Oh, no, appreciate it.
All right, thank you very much, and thank you for everything that you do, both with the Ehrlich and then also with Canines with Warriors. I've worked with people that have been a part of the program. I've seen personally the impact that it has in helping people get back and deal with their issues. And I can say from having witnessed it that it really is a tremendous program. It does a lot of good. So thank you. Next week, our speaker will be Ashley Rutland from Financial Literacy for Students. Just a couple of quick reminders. Social here at Timaquana on January 31st. Be sure to RSVP either with Patty or directly with Jackie B. Please do, if you can make it, go get blood on your way out. And there's a board meeting that starts immediately following this meeting. If we could just kind of congregate over here in the next 5 minutes, I do want to see whether or not we're going to have a quorum to have that. Now I'd like for Carl Dawson to lead us in four or 5-way test.
It's a 5-way test. 5 ways for things we think, say, and do. Number 1.
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Number 5. Is it fun?
Yeah. All right, thank you, everybody. Let's go make the world a better place.